Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jacknin, Charlie Einsmann, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancy. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it. That would be approved. Even a basement, it doesn't count as a bedroom, obviously, unless it has a proper egress.
Yeah.
But what people do in there is another question. But what they legally can do is
You don't want to rent an unlawful use.
yes.
That's a good lesson for today.
Yeah. Is that? Oh, we're already to our lesson. This is exciting.
Charlie's got a tale from the basement for the week.
Oh, okay. All right. So first lesson is don't do illegal shit in your rental properties or knowingly let people do illegal shit. So that's lesson one. What's Charlie's tale that we can turn into a lesson?
Well, my tale involves the old adage, trust and verify. So this basement tale comes to us from Washington, D.C. One of our associates that we know happens to be a contractor by trade. He's licensed, bonded, and insured in Washington, D.C. Well, he's currently undergoing a fix and flip project in a single family house over in Northwest D.C. in a very prominent neighborhood. And so one of the things that he's done is this house needs a total gut job. And so the numbers on it sort of look like this. It's a $1.3 million after repair value. The purchase price was around $675,000, and it needs about $300,000 in renovation.
Sounds
So
good.
he's up. Yeah, it's good. It's a good deal all day. And it's in a great neighborhood of single family homes. They've been around since the 1920s. And he's got a very nice, and his house is on a very nice mature lot. And this is where the trust and verify piece comes in. Well, if you're undergoing renovations in Washington, D.C., one of the first things that you want to do is become friendly with your neighbors. So that's what this poor guy did, is he has a neighbor to the left and a neighbor to the right because it's a single family house. Well, facing the house, the neighbor to the left is a couple of elderly ladies who have been there for a very long time. They might even have been, I don't think they're original owners, but their family might have been original owners to the left. The house to the right is owned by a gentleman who's into save the earth. He's a green kind of guy, save the planet. He's a what's it called, Sam? He's into ecology.
Environmentalist?
Yeah, he's an environmentalist.
Right.
So
He has like a garden it's a natural setting garden. It takes over like into the street. And it's very prominent. It's not something he just keeps to himself personally. It's everywhere.
Okay.
Right. And so this will play a big part to this story later on. So
this is a lot of time this guy's putting into every plant in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. So our compatriot, who's a contractor, he goes and tells each neighbor. He goes and meets them, and he tells him, he goes, yeah, my wife and myself are gonna buy and renovate this house and move into the neighborhood. So we
not telling him it's a flip now.
Right.
Right.
So that's not a good start. You're not starting with honesty, Sam. That's
right.
No.
That's right.
Okay.
But
Sometimes you don't want to tell everything from the beginning. I've noticed things like that.
Falsehood.
What?
A falsehood, I know Ed would probably disagree, but a falsehood and an omission can be different. You don't have to say anything about what
yes.
That's
Exactly.
Right. That's right.
No, that it is different,
That's
right?
right.
If you literally say, I'm moving in once this is done and you have no intention, that's a lie. If you say, yeah, I'm renovating this and I'm going to see how it comes out, might be a great place to live, that's advocating without lying, but that's lawyer law.
That's right. That's just lawyer talk. Lawyer talk.
Okay, so we got environmentalist next
That's
to the house that probably looks like crap, I assume,
That's
and
right.
needs to be renovated.
It does. That's right. And even the house to the left, both houses next door to this house need to be renovated. So this guy is definitely bringing up the values of the neighborhood.
Right.
So So what he does is he got friendly with the neighbors. Both neighbors supposedly like him. We'll find out in a couple months, but both neighbors like him. So his backyard is full of trees. He's probably got about, Sam, I'd say 15 to 20 trees back there.
Yeah, some quite large, like old
Right.
trees, like old
Right.
trees.
Old growth. Yeah.
Right. And to his defense, a couple of the trees are indeed dying. Okay. Well, the first thing that our friend did, he pulled a repair and replace in-kind permit to go ahead and renovate the house. Now it is a total renovation. It's a 3-level house. So what he spent his time doing the first 2 weeks of the renovation is he dug out and expanded the house. So he added on about 15 to 20 feet of the house, 3 levels, right? And so he pulled a repair and replacing kind permit, which
That's hold on. That's on the house, Charlie, because I thought there was repair and replace in kind for trees as well. So we're talking just the house.
Just the house. We're talking about the house.
yeah, we're just talking about the house. He might have pulled them for the trees. We don't know. We haven't looked yet.
We haven't verified that, but I'm thinking the answer is no on all trees.
But and repair and replace means within the existing footprint, but you're saying
right.
he's expanding the house.
Yeah. Well, when we got there, he was reporting that it was in fact it was that way when he found it.
That's right. That's right.
See.
When he bought it was that way.
Some ambiguity. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Sam and myself paid a site visit to our friend just because he's a contractor and we want to see the quality of work that he's doing on the particular house. So the first thing that we did is we went around to the backyard. Now, keep in mind, this backyard is full of trees. Maybe 1 or 2 are dead, not 6 or 7 or 8. Well, we started looking through the backyard, and of course there was a dumpster, and that's normal because he was demoing the house. And the thing that we noticed was about 8 to 10 trees have these green X's on them.
Uh-oh.
And so we said to our friend, we said, what are these X's for? What do you plan on doing with
Clear cut.
green X's? Yeah, that's right. So his plans are to.
As soon as you said trees and contractor, I immediately thought clear cut, but go ahead.
Yeah, clear cut's the right term.
Yeah.
And so these trees have green X's on it. And so we asked our friend, who should be nameless, we said, what do you plan on doing with these trees? He goes, oh, I have an arborist or a tree company coming in next week to remove all these trees.
Every green X.
Every green X.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of trees.
Yeah, it's probably not the color you'd pick green. It's more like red, like death.
Yeah, he put green for conservation. And so
Green was go ahead. Green was the go ahead.
Yeah,
green for to make more money on the house. Yeah.
Yeah, green for conservation, green for go ahead, green for whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so then the best part is coming. And so we go and we say, what are you doing? I mean, you got to be careful. You got to do the right thing per DC when you're removing trees.
Some rules.
And one of the trees in particular that was not dead had a circumference of about, how big, Sam?
Bigger than my arm.
Bigger than your screen right now.
Like a big oak tree or something?
Yeah, big oak tree, probably between 18 to 24 inches in circumference.
Wow.
Okay, and so the next best thing happened to us is that went ahead and showed us the quote. And if you've ever had a tree company come and remove just one tree, stump included, and these are mature trees, you know that each tree is probably between $1,500 to $2,500 a tree.
Right.
Well, he's going to all day.
All day, man.
More than that, Charlie. This big? Oh my gosh.
All day and Sunday.
Yeah,
So,
all day and Sunday. They're about $3,000 at our house.
Right. So we were just curious, as we are very curious on some site visits, as we were curious to see how much something like this was quoted. So our friend showed us a quote of $6,000 to remove all these trees.
For 8 trees?
Including the one with the very big circumference.
Wow.
So we're going to keep an eye on things and just check back in with him later in his project to see where he's at.
That's right. That's right. So the topic of the day should be trust and verify.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, this guy's what we call a 40, 40, 30 kind of guy. 40% of what he says is the truth. 40% is an embellishment. and then not 30%, but 20% is just an absolute lie. So in this business, most of our time is spent
Figuring out.
trusting and verifying. And unfortunately, on our end, most of our time is spent on the verification standpoint and just verifying that these truths are really being told.
Well, so this is
It's sad. It's sad because in life you want to think that you can trust folks.
what? You wouldn't need lawyers if that was the case. Lawyers are a symptom of a lack of trustworthy people. And
That's why we don't trust lawyers.
right, we're attracted like moth to a flame.
Mm.
You're just attracted to lack of truthfulness. But so in this instance, are you a potential hard money lender or something to this guy?
Well, this particular guy has been our contractor on a couple of our projects downtown.
I see.
One was a condo conversion, and a couple were just fix and flips, you know, for us. And so, we've been following his career, and was a potential flip that he's doing.
Yeah. Well, one lesson that definitely comes out of this, if say you're partnering with a contractor on a fix and flip, is to make sure they know how to follow local, not just construction rules, right? But like you guys pointed out with the trees, you can get yourself in big time trouble in jurisdictions by trees. A lot of people figure out it's my tree, I can chop it down.
Oh, it doesn't really work that way.
No, not at all. In fact, what was it? Dan Snyder, the owner of what's now the Washington football team years ago, got in deep trouble for cutting down clear cutting a bunch of trees down near the Potomac on his property. And I don't know, it was years of litigation and replacement costs. So yeah, so if you're partnering with a contractor, you need to make sure they know how to fly right, because I assume if you did get a fine for something like that, it's going to be dinged on the property, right?
Oh yeah.
So
They could tag the property for no more work. They could give you a massive fine. Let alone they could just charge you what you're supposed to pay, which would be quite high for that many trees and that many inches, depending on the kind of tree and whatnot. So
yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking about, as opposed to the cost to cut the tree down. I know I've had a couple taken down in my yard here in DC, and it wasn't necessarily the cost to get them down. It was those fees to DC.
Yeah, we paid a couple $1,000s for a single tree before.
Easy. And the way DC does it is they charge you a fee. First of all, they got to approve it, right? You've got to get it approved. And so if the tree is really mature and old, odds are they might not approve it. So the second
thing, you may not get an approval at any price.
Yeah.
Right. So the second thing that DC does is they charge you a fee based on the circumference of the tree itself. And so the wider that circumference is, the more money you got to pay. And
to the point that if it's a mature oak tree, like you said, Charlie, they're not going to let you take that down.
That's right.
You won't be able to.
They're all different species, settings, and whatnot.
Yeah, you won't be able to replace that like kind for another 60, 70 years. They're not going to allow you to do that. So
that's right.
So what do you do? I mean, what do you do?
We don't know. We haven't been to see the house since then.
Okay.
What the neighbor might say, the environmental guy at the end of that process.
Yeah, stay tuned on this one. This is a
basement with more.
What'd you say?
We'll be back from the basement.
Oh yeah.
For information on this.
For when there's somebody burned somebody's house down in retaliation. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So then there's like I said, the trust and verify piece. I mean, it's just, with all these projects going on, you just have to, get in there and get dirty and verify what's being said. I mean, like I said, that's 9/10 of our process is just verifying these truths / untruths, and that's just part of it.
Well, that's one question or one thing I've seen with you guys a lot, that it really helps to know a contractor who understands some of this stuff. I mean, Sam, I guess, has learned a bunch of this stuff from dealing with development in DC, but even to evaluate, say, our listeners, there's probably a lot of people that want to fix and flip, or if we have a listener, I'm assuming we'll have one, but they want to fix and flip. So like we were just talking about, you may see a house with a big yard and you think, oh, great, well, I can buy this cheap and expand the house and cut down trees and but there's all sorts of particularly in high regulatory areas like DC, you're going to have a lot more limitations on what you can do than say Virginia, although there's still plenty of setback requirements and things in Virginia. And I find it difficult to evaluate whether something is a good investment as a fix and flip property if you don't know that. And conversely, if you know or can find out, oh, by right in this spot in DC, I can add a level and I can go back 15 more feet, that could hugely increase the value of the property. And the current owner may have no interest in doing that. It's never been done. And I know you had one like that, Sam, where theoretically you had a right to add a third floor to a townhouse and theoretically had so many feet to go back, but there were other regulatory challenges because of the neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
A- And then just to further expand upon what Ed was talking about, Sam spends a lot of his time figuring these kinds of things out because Ed, you're talking about Washington D.C., but this is really a jurisdictional issue. D.C. has their own rules. PG County has their own rules. Montgomery County, Charles County, Anne Arundel, and even in Virginia, Prince William, Fairfax, Alexandria City, and Arlington. Every single jurisdiction's laws are different. And so it's the responsibility of not only the fix and flipper and the contractor, but also the lender. They've got to understand what you can and can't do either. Because just like our friends up in Washington, D.C., removing a couple of trees, that fine is going to get attached to the property. And so if the lender has to take it back or whatever, you might get stuck with a pretty big fine. And so,
Mhm.
and Sam will tell you, he spends a lot of his time with these jurisdictions and making sure that these projects don't become problematic. And that's a lot of time spent.
Right. Yeah. Well, because you guys are always, in order to make a hard money loan, at least, it's similar to deciding to buy the property yourself. Because if the guy or gal who buys it fixes and flips it and they fail, you're going to be stuck finishing that. So you need to know what the end product can be. And if they've done some huge regulatory violation, that's just going to be a problem for you to clean up. That's going to cost a lot of money. But that's why you guys, it seems to me that you guys could use some contractor, well, but like you say, Charlie, it's in every jurisdiction. Be great if you had a very knowledgeable contractor who just could quickly evaluate what you can do with a given piece of land or property. Um, Despite the fact you guys as real estate agent and broker have a ton of experience with valuing these things, but it seems like that'd be a nice thing to add to the Clear Sky group. Do you guys reach out and talk to contractors about that stuff? Do you just figure, well, I'll
I think
assume?
we're always in the community talking to them about what's allowed, what's not allowed.
Uh-huh.
It's ever changing, and the degree of enforcement and bureaucracy also changes, like to the extent that they really want to enforce it, or you know what they're looking for in different jurisdictions.
Right,
So
right.
you
Yeah,
guys
because
have
Like the
contractors, yeah,
huh?
you have contractors that you work with in the DMV, DC,
Yeah,
Maryland
all through the area.
area who are pretty knowledgeable about the, rules, regulations of each of those three jurisdictions. So I guess it's important for somebody who is, fixing and flipping to, get in contact with some local contractors and get their, local contractor relationships together, establish a good relationship like you guys do, and
hmm
keep those guys with you all the time. Maybe that's something we can talk about at a future time too.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would
that
be good working with contractors. And I guess the thing, if you're a fix and flip person and you don't have that contact, I guess you're relatively safe in assuming that you can repair and replace what's there. If you have a 3-bedroom townhouse with a certain footprint, you pretty clearly can fix that, except
Yeah.
if it's like in a historic preservation zone, or then you could have all sorts of limits on what kind of windows you could replace and all that sort of thing. But to really unlock the value of the property, if you some of these now, if you're already doing a full renovation and you can add an extension off the back, that doesn't cost a whole lot more than the renovation, but that really drives up the square footage and the pricing. um,
So Sandra,
yeah.
your new acquisition, are you going to be doing any work on it? Or are you making an egress third bedroom in the basement, or are you going to let it go as a 2-bedroom?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I did acquire, or my husband and I acquired what's officially a two-bedroom, two-bath unit in Washington, D.C., although sometimes it, appears to be a three-bedroom. And I think some people might call it a three-bedroom because there's a bedroom in the basement. There is a window in the basement and there's a full bath in the basement. Well, a standing shower. So it looks like it could be three bedrooms. I'm, reluctant, to call it a three-bedroom. Someone called me about showing it to them and what are the specs on the property, and they thought it was three, and I told them no, it's not three, it's two, because there's no egress window. There's a window, but not everyone can get out of that window. So at some point I need to look at putting an egress in there so I can call it a three-bedroom, two bath home. But it brings up an interesting point. Someone called me and said that can they put a basement, or she's looking to put a business in the basement. So she's looking at putting like a nail salon or a hair salon. I think it's more of a nail salon in the basement. And I'm concerned, and I told her I would be concerned about that, for several reasons. There's not enough ventilation in the basement for, those nail fumes. I have a teenage daughter who does nails in her room right now with really big windows in it. And it's almost, the fumes can kill you, when she starts that up at 8:30 at night. The other thing is that, that window is not an egress window. And, Ed can probably talk about this as a lawyer. I'm sure that there's some requirements for a business in the basement. You need to be able to have people walk in and out of that business, not crawl in and out of a basement window. Um, Although there is a separate entrance kind of on that, upper level that you go straight down into the basement so you can get in, but you should be able to get out, I think, from downstairs.
Huh. So what is it, Sam? Actually, Sam knows a lot of this stuff better than I do. Isn't it typically like 3 foot by 4 foot is what an egress window has to
Yeah,
be?
so there's a certain amount of square feet. It's standard. That one's standard in DC and nationally. But the way the window operates, you have to have a clear,
Opening.
like
Mhm.
a double hung window where you can't get the whole thing open. It has to be completely open. And then if you come out into a space, you have to be able to climb out of it to the ground surface too. So
Right.
you have to both exit and exit the whole building. You don't want to be stuck in a hole
And
outside.
it has to be low enough that you can like get
And
up.
it has to be low enough. So it has to hit
Mhm.
all three of those requirements. It has to be low enough, it has to be large enough, and you have to be able to get out of it. You put a big hole in the back, when you put that in, you may also need drainage, right? Because you don't want water to fill up like a submarine in there. So you may need a drain pipe attached to the bottom of the new window well. There's a lot of stuff. The window well will need new window will need a header, a big hunk of metal or stone that's stuck, or wood that's stuck in the wall that will carry all the load above it. There's a bunch of stuff associated with an egress window, so it can run a little bit of money to get it right.
I can't call that a pool outside of the window if there's a little water out there.
Yeah. So if you don't get it right and you rent the place and the person becomes entrapped and dead or injured, it will tell you what happens next. And it's not like their death is horrible, but on top of that, there's going to be more horribleness.
Yeah, this is known as bad news in the law business.
Yeah.
That's a technical term.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so what does it cost to do something like that? Like if this is below grade, Sandra?
No, this is not below grade. This is probably
Ah,
a good opportunity to put in an egress window. It is not
I
below
see.
grade.
Because I would think, yeah, digging down to put steps in or whatever, and the water issue would be the biggest problem. But if it's just expanding a window and it's already close to the grade, it might not be too bad. And as you said, you probably can't legally advertise it as 3 bedrooms because it's not a legal bedroom. But for whatever amount of money it costs, then you can advertise it. Well, that's all the difference. So, are you renting this, Sandra? That's the plan, or are you going to flip it?
I will be renting this.
I see.
The plan is to rent it, and it's a smallish window. So I mean, it'd be some expansion of the window. And right now there is a washer or dryer below that window and some pipes. So have to move the washer and dryer and resituate those in the small room. And right now it's closed. It's like behind a closed door, so we have to open that up as well. So to allow access directly to that window. So.
I
Um,
see.
I'm,
I
I'm,
see.
I'm
Maybe even put in a ventilation thing or whatever. I know you had mentioned about this before about the nail salon, and I guess I talked a little bit, and or I guess I would mention that it's surprising in DC. You would think it's a fairly high regulatory place, and it is, but they are pretty easygoing, and as I saw it, to let an individual owner and I think renter have a little nail salon, beauty salon in a residential area. You would think, oh, that's a commercial use, that's got to be,
Yeah.
but no. If you meet certain things, and you better, your renter or whatever would need to meet all of these requirements, it might be a possibility where you could end up. I think they may have to live there. Actually, maybe part of it, right? Like you couldn't rent it to them. The basement is the nail salon, even if you
Right.
fix all those issues. So, but if they live there, or maybe they rent the whole building. They live on the first two floors and use the basement for a nail salon. I think that's probably doable, and could really raise the rental value. I would think, depending on where it is, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
What do you think? What do you guys think, Sam and Charlie? How much more would she be likely to rent a 3 bedroom versus a 2 bedroom, versus how much you think it might cost for an egress window in that situation?
Yeah, I think she's about $6,000 to get the egress. And how much do you think, Charlie, the extra rent would be for a legal third bedroom down there?
Well, it just depends because people view it as it's a third bedroom
They do.
already.
They do.
So
Right, when they
you
see
might
it.
get an extra, I don't know, $200 a month maybe out of it. I
Yeah.
don't even know because right now they view it as a third bedroom because the key to her particular property is that what we're calling a full bath in the basement, even though it is just a shower, it is considered a legal full bath, and so that's really the driver more so than the third bedroom because people are going to use it as a third bedroom anyway.
Right.
Well, I
Mhm.
think the third bedroom answer is that when you sell it, it increases your marketability
Yes,
a lot. So
for
it's gonna,
sure.
you're certainly going to get back the 6 grand. You probably will get back 10 or 12, and you'll increase the speed of the sale dramatically. Like
Mhm.
an out sale will go way faster in a slower market with legal bedrooms. So
For sure because in
doing
DC,
it, I would do it.
yeah, because in DC it's just I mean it's a square footage play anyway. So they're gonna your property's gonna be worth the finished square footage anyway. And so even if you have the third bedroom, it is going to increase it in value, but that's where you're going to get your increase, not necessarily the rents. It's going to be definitely the value.
So it
Mhm.
sounds like I wait until I sell the place as opposed to doing it now because folks are going to consider it a third bedroom anyway, and they'll probably live down there anyway.
Well,
Not that I,
for me, I probably get the benefit of it by doing it now. So you have and you're done with it. You've got to wrap it up. And because when you get to sell it, the tenant will leave, and you'll be like, want to line up the contractor. He won't be available. You'll have to hang on to it. You'll be like, oh hell, I'll just sell it like it is. You won't get to doing it by then because you'll be up without
Yeah,
it.
the other positive thing about doing it now is that okay, once you add in the third bedroom on the egress, right, you're going to eventually get the house reappraised within a couple of years because you're going to want to think about adding some sort of HELOC line of credit on top of your first trust anyway to maybe give you future liquidity in case you want to buy something else. Because one of the things that we continuously do is once these values of these rentals increase, we go ahead and put some sort of home equity line of credit wrapper on top of it so that increases our liquidity so we could go out there and buy more and more stuff. Now, because we own so many properties, it's not really called a HELOC. It's just called an increased line of credit.
Mhm.
So that's one of your strategies. That makes
all right.
sense. Mhm.
So I've known these guys for a very long time, decades, and I just kind of fall into, or fell into becoming a real estate investor. It seems like they're dragging me into this now. All I see is that I spent a boatload of cash, to purchase this property. I had no thoughts of, in a couple of years reappraising it and getting more money out and buying more properties. Was not my plan, but I mean, I guess on the roadmap to wealth for Clear Sky Financial, I am definitely on the
You're on
road.
it. You're on it. It's a
I'm
balance sheet
kicking and
play.
screaming, but I'm being pulled and pushed a little bit.
It's a balance sheet play. It's not all about cash.
It's definitely a balance sheet play.
You don't get
For
a
sure.
vacation at the end of it. You just get another house.
That's right.
I,
You just build your own monopoly, right? That's all you're doing. And so
my
and so in
kids
your
will
case,
love
in
it.
your case, I don't even know what loan did you pull out on that property?
What does that mean?
Like how much do you owe on the first trust on that property?
Oh, I don't know,
Was it 300?
270?
Oh, okay, 270. All right. So in this case, 270, right? So you owe 270. By adding that third bedroom, that property's ARV is going to be between 450 and 475.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's even at an easy number, 470, and you owe 270. Well, right there, you've got $200,000 of equity in there on your balance sheet, right? So you have a performing asset with a tenant in there. You have $200,000 in equity. Now, nobody's going to put a second trust on top of you to let you use the entire 200, but they might free you up 75 to $100,000. So that's always a good idea, a suggestion that you might want to think about doing. Not right now. Own that thing 6 months to a year and then do it. That makes sense.
Right. Well, even the first rental I got was in roughly 2008. And what amazed me, I mean, I even though I'm a lawyer and I know about this stuff generally, what amazes me about real estate, I never really sort of understood till I had a rental and some of the things you're talking about. The person was basically paying my mortgage on the property, which is paying down the principal that I owed. And meanwhile, there's the appreciation, which averages X percent a year, which I'm getting the benefit of. So I think that particular, like in 2018, I refinanced the property and took cash out actually, and not even just a loan because interest rates had come down, and the rent had increased enough. It was still covering now that new loan, but I actually did take cash out to do other things with, and it again, it's still net positive on cash, and that's the real thing to me about rentals is over that time period you're getting like double growth. They pay your principal and then the market rate goes up, and 10, 15 years or whatever it is, you've actually built quite a bit of equity. Whether
Right.
you've tapped it or not is another question, but yeah.
Yeah, we're not even talking about the benefits of depreciating that asset against your
Right,
taxes,
right,
right?
right,
So all
right.
that free flow and cash flow that you're getting, even though you're going to be a positive cash flow, I don't know, I'm just guessing 300 to 500 bucks a month. The depreciation on that property, if it's a 27 and a half year depreciation scale, is going to mitigate that $500 a month positive cash flow. So you're going to break even on it from a cash flow, save that money in taxes, which is great.
Right. I agree.
Right. That, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, that I was wondering a little bit about the 1% rule you guys always talk about, where you don't want to pay what if the place is 200,000 that you're paying, that's the gross number. You want to be able to rent it for 2,000. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that's close. That's correct. Yeah. So if it's 2,000 a month, we want to buy it for 200, but it's not an exact science. So if we're in there between 180 and 240, then we're okay. And that 240 or 220 or 230 includes the renovation and includes a rental renovation.
Right.
And so as long as
Don't freak Sandra out because she's in a different market down there where she bought that.
yeah,
No, but here's my thinking. So I know not a lot of people are in the position that we're in, but we had cash, and a lot of us like to just see our cash sitting in the bank. I don't know who us is, but
You and Charlie.
me and Charlie, I like to see my money sitting in the bank, but it's not doing anything. I'm getting point zero 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 zero.
And the anger builds up, and you guys have
Right. And then every year I'm like, okay, I'm going to do something with it this year. And every year I don't do anything with it. And it's just sitting in there making 35 cents a year. And I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. I could be doing something with this money. So this is, I took this year to decide to just kind of, go ahead and invest in real estate with this money that was just sitting there taunting me every year.
no, it's a brilliant move. Just
It
look at
is.
it, but just look at it from a simplicity sake, and let's just look at the cash over cash return on your money, right? If your monthly positive is 500 bucks a month and you invested $60,000 as a down payment, if you multiply 500 times 12, you get $6,000. So what you're doing is that $60,000 down payment, you're earning $6,000 a year. So in other words, that $60,000 just from a cash on cash standpoint is earning you a 10% interest, if that makes sense. Now, it doesn't take into consideration the appreciation of that asset. We're just looking at it from a cash on cash return. So, I mean, Sandra, I think that's a brilliant move. If you,
Well, that's why my question
yeah,
about the 1% rule, it seemed sort of stingy to me. I
it
mean,
is.
it's absolutely great if you can do
It's
that,
stingy. Mhm.
but if if you're factoring in, well, okay, I'm break even on the cash flow and it's less than that 1%. I'm only getting it's like 0.8% or something. in a few years, if the market goes up moderately, right? You're not expecting some massive 20% gain, but if you figure 3% a year, it goes up, and the person's paying at least my interest charge. Like I think I had got one once where they were covering at least my interest charge. I figured, like you said, that the investment of the actual principal, I was paying the principal down, and the property was going up in value, and pretty quickly rents went up and it all normalized out where it's now better than a 1% ratio. But I wonder, is that worth, I don't know, should you
Yeah,
just never
it
go
is.
over the 1% or
No,
what?
no, no, you're absolutely right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good
Evaluate
rule.
it.
Well,
Your market.
yeah, the only reason we came up with that rule is just because it's for us, we like to make decisions in 60 seconds or less, right? And so,
Some
and
might call
so,
that laziness, Charlie.
That's so
so,
true.
so we like to make
All
decisions
true.
in 60 seconds or less. And so we just figured that that was an easy rule of thumb. Now, you're absolutely right, Ed. In a low interest rate environment where properties are appreciating, you might want to take your 1% rule and just change it to the 0.75% rule. Because especially in a low interest rate environment, even the 0.75 rule will work as well. So that same thing where you have the $2,000 a month rent, and instead of doing the 1% rule, you're now down to the 0.75% rule. That could still enable you to buy a property that's worth $270,000. And so that's still going to work in a low interest rate environment like we have now. Now, this is going to work probably in the next 3 years, is my guess, because interest rates are probably going to stay low. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, the 1% rule for us is just a placeholder. It's not a wherewithal, be withal.
Right. Well, I guess too, you guys dig up a lot of opportunities, and it just depends for somebody getting into it. I guess rents in this area have done very well over time as well. So I guess as the legal disclaimer is always past performance doesn't confirm, but that's why the 1% rule is good, because it's safe, relatively speaking. If you're already break even on the rent versus the mortgage, I guess who the hell cares, unless the rent rates really go down and maybe the property value stays flat for 5 years or even goes down a little bit. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter at all. And so one of the things that we're seeing in our current environment is that we're seeing obviously an increase in equity, right? Values are going up, but we're also seeing rents finally going up. Rents have been very stable around here for the last 5, 7 years, but because of the lack of inventory stock, especially on the rental side, rents are getting escalated finally. And this is the first time we've seen this in about 7 years.
And
So
do
rents
you
are getting
think
escalated.
do you think that's mostly because nobody can be foreclosed on, or what do you think's generating that change?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's the moratorium on foreclosures, and I think it's also the lack of being able to evict tenants that's causing the problem in the rental stock. So you've got two things causing those problems. And so what that's going to lead to is probably, so if you have the opportunity to pick up a pretty good purchase, you might want to think about holding it and do the rule of not 1%, but maybe the rule of 0.75%.
Well, and maybe a good topic for next week. We can look at this, just to look at the information. There's been a lot of recent changes, right, on all the eviction rules. There's the CDC. You don't want to spread COVID by evicting people rule. Maryland has just come out, which I don't know if they base it on that, but they basically, haven't they just shut down the
Yeah.
whole residential foreclosure
Yep.
system?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so what that does with investment properties as well, and whether they're occupied, is really has thrown that up in the air, which could affect those valuation issues. I guess DC for a while, it's been very hard to evict somebody anyway in DC pre-COVID. I can only imagine it's much more difficult now. Sorry, Sandra.
Well, more from the more basement tales next week.
All right, sounds good.
I took a shower.
Oh, I can tell.
Oh, I'm glad I'm still recording. I'm going to put that in. Charlie's tale for the week is he took a shower. But
Very clean.
My weekly shower right before the podcast.